Hello everyone, Richard Lewis here with another video, and this one will be quick, hopefully to the point. Literally breaking news at the time of recording this, which is about 11 a.m. on the East Coast. What we've got here is the news that Monte won't be casting at Worlds for League of Legends. Obviously, their World Championships is round the corner, and this is further evidence of League of Legends management, the higher-ups, basically doing things that are contributing towards the demise, the destruction of their game. And you know, at this point, it's inarguable that they are making poor decisions that are going to harm the community, in terms of their enjoyment of the game, their engagement with the game, and on top of that, decisions that are going to just harm their own business. Literally, this is not a good call, and you're going to see why this isn't a good thing. So first up, let's just talk about the general overall decline that has been happening in League of Legends. And I want to link this actually to a recent report that came out from Polygon and several other outlets, it's got to be said, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Riot Games, even though they didn't get around to making League of Legends until 2009. There was this, and I think it was in Polygon as well. It went out on Forbes, but basically the big article was in Polygon. It was called The Past, Present, and Future The Past, Present, and Future of League of Legends Studio Riot Games. It was an article by Phil Collar. Now, obviously, I don't have a lot of truck with Polygon. I think they're a disgraceful media outlet. This was a long article. It basically was the classic Riot Games. We only show you what we want you to see. We only engage with things that can be positive propaganda for us. We don't really engage with any of the criticism. And during this, it's revealed that apparently there's 100 million monthly players now on League of Legends. Whereas if you look at anything else, anything that uses an API, any other metric, it actually looks like total amount of players are down. And certainly the total amount of hours are down. Nobody is buying this 100 million number, I don't think. Now, perhaps there's some way they can fudge that number. Perhaps it's 100 million accounts. Perhaps it's, which would maybe make sense. I could believe that. But the way it's been framed is it's 100 million active players every month. And I'm just not going to believe that that's true. And I'd be very interested to see these numbers, where they're coming from, because this is Riot telling people on their 10th anniversary that the game is in rude health. We're all good. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. And they've literally done this whole press offensive. Now, if it is true, if that 100 million number is true, it's got to be said that with viewership plateauing, not increasing, and in fact, in some cases, decreasing, fairly poor numbers for EULCS, for example, their conversion rate remains horrible. They've never really been able to hook the casual player into their esports product. And this is basically down to a series of bad decisions that they've made business-wise. Now, keep in mind that on top of this, we've also seen the League of Legends subreddit, which was at one point the most active subreddit on the whole of Reddit. Okay, it was literally the most active subreddit at one point. Despite not having as many subscribers as people, the sheer volume of traffic it would drive was incredible, which is why they've been able to basically have dominion, the moderators that is, over so many people's careers. Because if you're if you exist on a financial model where it's per clicks, that's the place to go get your clicks. You literally may as well be banned from the whole internet if you cannot get on that subreddit if you operate on a pay-per-click model. And that is why so many people basically suck the mod dick that as it's presented, as it's slowly unzipped from a grubby looking fly, because they understand long term that's the thing to do. And that's why the moderators actually feel comfortable demanding editorial input from people that create content. What we say goes, otherwise we don't let you on the subreddit. And even people that consider themselves to be iconoclastic will actually fucking bow down and just get on with it because it's good for business. Obviously doesn't apply to yours truly. Now, what's interesting is this subreddit has declined in activity. Currently, it sits at 11th overall. on Reddit, and it's declining. And you can see month upon month, it had a little boost. Otherwise, it would have been well below. It would have been continuing on a downward trajectory. But all the drama that happened with Mark Merrill, Reginald's statement, and Mark Merrill's statement, and League of Legends statements, and other people making statements, sponsor statements, everyone making statements. If that drama doesn't happen last month, actually it continues on a downward trajectory. That drove a lot of traffic to the subreddit. But what's interesting is, while League of Legends sits at 11th overall, Overwatch, which is a relatively new game, certainly I'd say has a long way to go in terms of development. That's already up to 13th in terms of activity. That already has more subscribers than the CSGO subreddit. That certainly has overtaken League of Legends in PC bangs in Korea, although League of Legends has kind of edged forward again, but they're in a constant battle. And basically, Overwatch kind of looks to be the future. Now, at the decision that all the decisions that Mark Merrill and Riot and all those people have made, all these poor decisions, basically isolating the team owners, making them feel like they're not being looked after, they're not making enough revenue, team owners coming out and saying, hey, we make a loss on actually having League of Legends teams now, the profit just simply isn't there. Having sponsors come out and basically say, Riot say, we can't even do independent promotions in the teams that we sponsors YouTube channels. That's against Riot terms. All of this ridiculous overreach by Riot. All of this just coincides with Overwatch being a viable option. And certainly casual players that are just incredibly bored of this ridiculous system of League of Legends, where it's like, if you criticize anyone while you're playing, you get banned, you have to create a new account, level it up. You still can't buy a level 30 account, so you can get straight into rank play if you're a Smurf. So that basically disrupts all new players that are learning the game, disrupts all of their fun and enjoyment. It's a fucking grind to begin with. All the things that they've introduced are just kind of bolted on to an old client. These are incredibly poor business decisions, and they've been made at the worst possible time because now players have an alternative to go to. You can just start playing Overwatch. It might be a different game. It might have some kinks that it needs to be ironed out, but it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting, and it doesn't seem to have any of the clear problems at the moment that League of Legends certainly does. So these decisions are terrible. And they come at a terrible time. And basically everyone seems to be conspiring in a way to almost make Overwatch succeed by proxy, not just on its own merits, because League of Legends are fucking up. We've had a bunch of scandals in Counter-Strike. People are like, well, fucking hell, Overwatch is something new. It doesn't seem to have these issues that other games do. I'm going to go check it out. And then we have this announcement, which is a big deal, certainly for Overwatch, in my opinion. It's a shame their subreddit isn't more focused on the competitive side of things, because it's actually kind of gone unnoticed. There's another subreddit called Competitive Overwatch. Gets a fraction of the traffic and the attention, about a 10th overall of the main Overwatch subreddit. But this is basically Monte Cristo and Doa, legendary League of Legends commentary partnership, currently at OGN. They're going to be commentating on an OGN league. Now, we've known and talked about on previous shows that OGN were going to move into Overwatch. Obviously, they've got good relationships with Blizzard. Blizzard are very keen this time for Overwatch to be their successful esport. We've leveled criticism at the past, for StarCraft. We've leveled criticism at the past for maybe how they've handled other games, Hearthstone, whatever it is. But this is the one where they are literally putting all of their collective energies in to basically making a successful esports title, which is great to see, because obviously Blizzard are kind of the forefathers of esports with the success that they had with Brood War. So they want this to be successful, and the OGN, obviously, great production, and with great production, you have to have a great broadcasting experience, and there's no doubt Monte Cristo and Doa are one of the great duos in world commentary for esports. So bringing them over is a huge coup. And this obviously ties in with, League of Legends haven't had a great relationship with Monte Cristo for some time. And I think actually at this stage in his career, it's a very easy decision for Monte Cristo to make. Certainly Doa's going to go where Monte Cristo goes. They have great chemistry, great synergy, a lot of healthy respect for each other. It's not one of those fake partnerships you see. So obviously they're going to go and they're going to do this thing for their employers, OGN. Remember, they're freelance. They don't work for Riot. They've never been beholden to Riot, which is why they've always been one of the more how shall we say, truthful commentators or commentary duos when it comes to criticizing the meta, criticizing in-game bugs. These guys have actually had free reign to say what they want. No doubt much to Riot's disgust, but they've been one of the few people you can listen to and hear an authentic voice about the game. And of course, they're commentating on the highest level of League of Legends, the Korean League. It doesn't get higher than that. So certainly them moving across, as reported in ESPN by Jacob Wolf, moving across to Overwatch is huge. It's a very, very big deal. And I know Monte Cristo has been working on it, and I know Doa's been working on it. They've been putting a lot of work in and learning the meta, learning the game. This is the first time that they're going to have been, certainly for Monte Cristo, that they've casted an FPS title. So why is this a big deal? Well, let's do the follow-up story. And that is that it's announced today, as I said just a few moments ago, that Monte Cristo will not be commentating at the League of Legends World Championships in October. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be part of the broadcast. He's been there every year since 2013. And Doa was invited. But he's obviously had a wedding, apparently, and he can't go. I suspect there might be a little bit more to it than that. He may have deliberately timed this wedding of his to coincide with Worlds. I think he kind of knew. Maybe I'm really reading too much into it. But I think basically it was very clear in his mind. Fuck Worlds this year, just not going to happen. So how do we get to this stage? Well, Riot actually informed Monte Cristo on August the 9th he will not be getting invited to Worlds. So this is a Monte Cristo dropping out. This needs to be absolutely clear here. Whether Monte Cristo would have gone to Worlds or not, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, he takes his job very seriously. He's a professional. I think if the invitation was extended and the rates were favorable, I think he goes and does it. But this is a key thing here. This is classic Riot. As soon as you are outside the fold, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. It doesn't matter what you bring to the table. It doesn't matter how big your fan base is. Once you are persona non grata, that is it. You are done. They will not mention you. They will not reference you. They will not include you. And they will leverage every relationship they can to make your life very, very difficult to exist within the esports space. That is how they operate. And if you think it isn't, you haven't been paying attention whatsoever. Now, fortunately, Monte Cristo has a great employer who's willing to stand by him and willing to allow him to go and commentate on other games, despite Riot's sustained conflict that they've had against him. And let's be clear. This is Riot Games basically withdrawing an invitation to somebody that should be there on merit, that has delivered a high-quality broadcast every time he's ever sat down to talk about League of Legends, somebody who has been a model professional within the terms of the broadcast and his daily duties as a commentator. They've withdrawn their invitation, not based on what the fans want, not based on the fact that he is the leading authority on Korean League of Legends, the English speaking. They've withdrawn it based on the fact that he has gone against the company, that he isn't playing nice, that he isn't playing ball. And this all starts back with, if you remember, Monte Cristo actually came out and said, hey guys, we need favorable industry rates for commentators, for casters. And he highlighted all of the issues with Mark Merrill and Riot Games' model for paying their commentators. Here's what they do. They insist that if you're an employee of Riot Games, even if you're a commentator, you can't have things like YouTube channels. You can't talk to the media directly. You can't work on any other event or any other game in any other capacity. They do everything they can to basically limit you as an individual, but make you part of the machinery of Riot Games. They also don't even pay you a rate based on your work, but you get a flat rate, which isn't even necessarily very competitive within industry terms, and you just have to grind out work. Whatever they say you do, and that might be great when you have downtime and you do nothing and you get to spin your wheels. And certainly you'll be spinning your wheels a lot because you're not allowed a YouTube channel, you're not allowed anything else. But obviously, when they make demands upon you, you can suddenly see how being a freelancer would be a lot better. And I think, there's probably a few Riot employees who have come to realize this and are they're unable to say this publicly. They're not allowed to express their honest opinion because we've all seen what happens if you ever go against Riot Games. Think about Deficio. One of their true success stories. I always knew Deficio would be great. The very first column I wrote, European LCS, about Deficio. European LCS has a new voice. And people were criticizing him and saying he was nervous and jittery and his commentary was bad. And I'm like, yeah, but he's going to get better. He's definitely going to get there. He's got what it takes. And lo and behold, here he is now, one of the most popular voices they've got. But he wanted to walk away from it. And he wanted to get back into coaching, into management, into team ownership maybe. Had talks with Copenhagen Wolves, and for simply exploring the option to get a job and to leave Riot Games, they punished him. They publicly castigated him. They withdrew him, banned him from commentating on Copenhagen Wolves games, as if that does anything, as if that is inherently a conflict of interest. And they basically publicly disgraced him and embarrassed him just as to fire that warning shot across the bows. And that's how it works. We made a video about it on this channel. It's called Welcome to Riot Games. You'll never leave. This is how they operate. They don't treat their staff with a lot of reverence and respect if they ever go off message. And if you repeatedly go off message, this is where you end up. You end up in the Monte Cristo pile. Now, Monte Cristo, of course, tried to basically draw attention to the fact that even the freelancers were getting poorly paid by Riot Games, that they were not paying a sizable industry rate. And one thing we can say is that while Riot Games take a lot of credit for growing the esports pie and growing esports as an industry, they themselves haven't scaled up with that growth. They don't, for example, the World Championships prize pool has stayed the same. Their day rates have barely grown at all. For commentators and other people, their salaries aren't certainly the biggest in the space anymore. In fact, there's a lot of independent tournament organizers now that can offer you more money than working at Riot Games. And this is, again, well documented. You can look into that yourself. Certainly, people don't work at Riot Games for the salary. If you go on the Glassdoor reviews, certainly people say, look, I could make more money elsewhere, but I just love it here because I'm part of a family, all drinking Kool-Aid all day. So Monte Cristo really put himself on fucking notice there when he did that. And I think Monte Cristo knew that would be the outcome. I think he knows it ends up this way. He reached out to other esports titles. And obviously, again, like I've always said about Counter-Strike, we're all good lads. We're pretty transparent about what we earn. I've always done that. I make no bones about my earnings. I don't want it to be a secret. I want people to be able to assess their value commensurate to other people in the space, because that's good. That helps them, stops people getting ripped off. I think transparency is a very good thing. So obviously, Monte took that information and said, this is what people are making in Counter-Strike. So why the fuck aren't we, why are we making a fraction of that in League of Legends? And he did it publicly. And of course, that was for MSI. They don't go there. They don't commentate. And that's it. Riot Games have been basically looked to be made very foolish, even though everything he said is true and what he's trying to do is beneficial for a lot of people. It doesn't matter to Riot. It doesn't matter to Riot. It's never mattered to Riot. So he gets that. Then, of course, over this team ownership thing, he has basically been very vocal about how they don't monetize the league correctly. And this is absolutely true. It's inarguable. They have the #1 esport in the world, and yet they haven't been able to turn it into some meaningful revenue share for the partners, for the owners, for the players that have helped grow their game. And they actually did a better job of this before LCS existed, where they threw money at everyone who just was willing to play League of Legends and promote League of Legends. They've actually regressed in that regard. So again, Monte Cristo didn't help himself there. But again, I don't think he cared. And on top of that as well, we have the whole Renegades issue. And let's be clear that whatever you think about whether or not Renegades should have been removed, I maintain that it's certainly the right decision for people like Chris Badawi to not be around young adults. That is absolutely my viewpoint. I've basically got the handcuffs on there about talking about that, because if I ever get into what happened, not only has it got the potential to hurt people that I do respect, like, and care about, it's also been made very clear to me that I then spend the next however many months fighting off accusations. There'll be smears and leaks against me and everything else, and I have to deal with that. So I'd much rather concentrate on what I do for a living than have to deal with all of that bullshit. So it's just better to just say that I think it's a good decision. Now, Monte Cristo, here's what we will say, certainly wasn't hands-on with Renegades, yet has somehow been dragged into it, guilty by association. But I guess if you do put your name on the paper and say you're an owner, that's fair enough. But I think we've undoubtedly seen with the Jens Hilgers ruling and the financial interest they had in G2 and Fnatic with their loan, I think we've undoubtedly seen there that Riot Games issued a warning, said, naughty, don't do that again, even though that was a provable, documented fiscal relationship between two parties that should never have had them. And they refused to address key issues. Here's where it gets complicated, right? In the same way that TDK and Renegades were alleged to have financial interests and did trades that looked to be certainly unfavorable and designed to dig Renegades out of a hole, G2 and Fnatic, while having this loan relationship where if Fnatic were to default on the loan, Jens Hilgers would effectively own Fnatic and Fnatic gear. They did a trade themselves. They traded a player, and nobody said, well, maybe this loan could have been used as leverage to get favorable terms. Nobody has assessed that to be a potential risk. Nobody has talked about that. And also as well, they did say at the time that one of the issues is that Monte Cristo had said that in the future, as soon as Badawi was unbanned, he would have ownership and all of this stuff, and it was like a verbal agreement, and that was the base. That was the basis. That verbal agreement went against the spirit of Riot's rules, Riot's words, right? That's what they said. Well, that future agreement, it could have happened in the future that Jens Hilgers could have owned Fnatic if they defaulted on their loan. So again, and that was provable by documentation. So obviously Monte Cristo very vocal about how that wasn't consistent, and it certainly wasn't consistent. And keep in mind as well, the way Riot Games framed that, they framed it by saying, we investigated it. They didn't investigate a goddamn thing. I did it for them. And of course, get no mention, no thanks, no pat on the back from Riot. I never will. I've done more to keep League of Legends clean than they themselves have, right? So definitely don't applaud me, don't mention me, but certainly don't frame it that you did the investigation. The whole idea here was for Jens Hilgers to deceive Riot Games, to deceive the fans. They didn't want this being made public. I made it public. So let's not pretend that this was a disclosure. Let's not pretend that this was handled in an ethical and proper fashion. So obviously Monte Cristo has lots of reasons to be upset with Riot Games, and he's articulated that upset, and that should be fair. That should be fair. You'll notice that some people can kind of get away with it. Reginald, obviously one of them, very vocal about, Mark Merrill and the problems with LCS, and Mark Merrill came out and love me some Reggie, and completely fucked up everything and made that terrible post that set off this, catastrophic chain of events to the point where team owners are honestly now thinking about withdrawing from LCS and striking. Right? That's a genuine debate that's happening in our space right now. But Reginald owns TSM, and that's a big deal. And TSM are very much interwoven in the fabric of League of Legends. So Mark Merrill is going to come out and fold and buckle a little bit. Certainly, Monte Cristo isn't as much. He's never been a Riot employee. He's made his distaste of Riot very clear multiple times. He has never owned a big brand that is essential to the existence and popularity of League of Legends. You can argue he himself as a brand is essential to that, but certainly I don't think outside of North America, Riot really care as much about your branding. So we all of this basically means, yep, you're on the naughty list, and the naughty list means you can no longer represent our game at Worlds at the highest level, when you would be the most used and you would be the most appreciated by fans, newer fans, of course, as well, coming into Watch Worlds, maybe haven't followed OGN, maybe haven't followed anything to do with anything outside of their region, and they need an intelligent, well-learned, voice to basically explain and break it down for them. Well, the best person to do that is Monte. He's not going to be there to do that. So it's inarguably cutting off your nose to spite your face. But that's Riot Games in a nutshell. Now, let me tell you about this as well. I'll give you an idea of the kind of things they get up to. And I've talked about this before, and I don't think it's ever really been seized upon as just how disgraceful and crazy this is. But this is literally Riot Games. This is what they do in a nutshell. I released a similar video criticizing Mark Merrill. It was over the Spectate Faker debacle. This was a man who came out and said that watching your favorite player play using an API that was available was cyberbullying. That's what he said. He said it was cyberbullying to watch an individual. This person streamed it at the time. It was for no money. Mark Merrill said he was just trying to make a quick buck. But there was no money on the stream. It wasn't monetized in that sense. Mark Merrill basically used all of his following, all of his leverage, which is considerable, to apply pressure to this individual to the point where he withdrew from the internet, deleted all of his accounts. Yet Mark Merrill can't see that maybe that might be considered cyberbullying, and ultimately couldn't explain why their client had a feature that built into it where I could spectate individuals without their knowledge at the time. Didn't explain why that was there. Didn't explain how other popular Twitch channels like, Watch Team or Die, for example, that did the exact same thing, which was literally coming into people's games, watching them make shit Team or plays and die. Didn't explain why that was okay and why they never had a problem about it. Didn't explain about how they actively encouraged a broadcasting partner to issue a fake and egregious DMCA claim. Didn't explain any of this. Right, that's Mark Merrill. Now, I released a video basically saying that everything he said was insane. His behavior was ridiculous. It was proof again that he doesn't understand the space, that he's never really understood the space, never made any attempt to understand the space, and actually, it was very distasteful the way he went after this individual. And keep in mind that when Spectate Faker came back briefly, and then actually did try and monetize the stream, Mark Merrill came out and. The Spectate Faker guy had made a post saying, "Yeah, I'm doing it for money. I just, I want to get paid. I made all this money in donations. Thanks very much." And Mark Merrill made a tweet going, "I don't want to say I told you so." Like, mate, it was completely different back then, so it wasn't even the same fucking thing. But anyway, so I released a video pointing all of this gibberish out, and I was due to work an ESL event. I can't remember which event it was. This is back in the start of 2015, and it was for StarCraft. I'd been asked and invited, and I was meant to go. And basically, I released that Mark Merrill video, and it became clear that because League of Legends was also going to be at this event, I wasn't allowed to go. I simply was not allowed to attend. And this has happened to me on more than one occasion. If I'm invited to attend and work on an event that isn't League of Legends, that isn't anything to do with Riot Games have said, because their game is going to be there, I am not allowed to attend. I am not allowed in a working capacity. I can't do it. Or they may consider withdrawing their game away from tournament. And again, they told me this directly. This is why it was bad timing to release that video, was how it was explained to me, as if my opinions should dictate working on a game. My opinions about Riot Games should dictate whether or not I can work on a game that has nothing to do with Riot Games. I understand if Riot Games don't want to employ me, don't want to work with me, don't want to acknowledge my existence. I've been one of the few journalists who has been honest about what they're doing and has reported on what they are doing consistently since their existence. It's quite embarrassing for them, honestly. So I'm sure that they definitely would never want me representing their game. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. That is your choice. But you certainly don't get to tell other developers, other tournament organizers, other businesses whether or not they can employ me and try and bully them into basically falling in line fiscally by making idle threats that, I say they're idle. They're so short-sighted, they probably stick to them. So Monte Cristo has now received similar treatment. To be told in advance, we're not going to invite you, so make other plans. Just hugely disrespectful, ridiculous decision on the size of it, and it's predicated on him trying to get fair pay, trying to get consistent rulings and being vocal about the failings of a business. None of those, for me, are grounds to effectively put in this punitive measure to try and, show him, we're punishing you. You don't get to do world championships. And keep in mind that Monte Cristo was always going to go to Overwatch anyway. This would have been a fitting farewell. This would have shown some class by Riot Games that, yes, we've had our differences. They could have took him out to Worlds. They could have said to him, this is definitely going to be the last time we invite you to any League of Legends event. But, we understand you're moving to Overwatch anyway, so it's not a big deal. And it could have been handled in a way that benefits the fans, benefits Monte, makes Riot look like anything other than petulant children. And I think everyone's happy about it. But instead, this is what we get. More childishness, more people that are going to be disappointed with the final product for World Championships. And, honestly, it could impact on viewership. Maybe not. Everyone seems to come out the woodwork for Worlds, but certainly it's like at this point, Riot have just given up on any self-preservation instinct they have. They continue to make ridiculous decision after ridiculous decision, and they're just eroding their own success, their own game. And they might want to think about this because they're going to make other titles, supposedly. They want to exist in the esports space. Long after League of Legends has petered out and declined and fallen way behind other esports titles, which is inevitable, frankly, they're going to make other games, and they're going to want those to be successful, and they're going to want to find existing talent to work with them to help promote those games. Well, you're starting to really limit the pool, because certainly, even if I was ever a consideration, I'd stand by my fellow talent. Always would. People who want to get fair pay for fair work, I believe in that. I believe in that principle. So I would absolutely stand by them. And I've proven that. I proved that with Thorin over, the ESL thing. I didn't have to withdraw myself from ESL. They invited me to several Counter-Strike events, and I was like, until Thorin is back in the fold, no Thorin, no me. Because I think trying to exclude people when they're clearly the best person for the job, that's not anything I'll ever endorse. I will never do that. So. And many other people feel the same way, honestly, in the talent pool. Now, keep in mind, say something like Counter-Strike, where we have an abundance of riches. Riot Games is supposedly meant to be an FPS, the next one that they're developing. And they've made hires suitable to that. So you might want to get some of the, people who maybe didn't quite get to the top of Counter-Strike. Good luck with that. I think they're going to be looking over at this and thinking, actually, I'd still rather be grinding over here than fucking being top dog over there, because we all know how that story ends. So they're making things incredibly difficult for themselves, not just within League of Legends terms, but broad as a business. Anyway, just some reactions, just some gut feelings. Obviously, wish Monte Cristo all the best, despite our numerous differences on certain issues. But certainly, when it comes to his commentary, he's one of the best, and I think he'll do a good job in Overwatch for sure. And certainly. Riot's loss and League of Legends loss is Overwatch's gain. So all the best to him. Certainly Riot Games need to take a long, hard look at themselves. They someone needs to step in. Hopefully now that Tencent owns them completely, they can step in and stop this madness, stop this rot. Because if they keep allowing people like Mark Merrill to drive these terrible decisions, there's no coming back from it. Trust me, I've seen it before. I've been in esports a long time. They are in a terminal free fall right now, and I don't know when they're going to pull the parachute. So there you go. Some thoughts on that. Thanks a lot for watching. See you on the next video.